Did you know that astronauts return from spacewalks with a mysterious smell clinging to their suits? They describe this odor as something reminiscent of grilled steak or even burnt gunpowder. But hold on, space has no air, let alone a barbecue floating around out there. So what exactly is this smell? What's causing this peculiar aroma in a place where, in theory, nothing should have a scent? Imagine stepping back into your spacecraft and suddenly being hit with a scent that feels like it came from a cosmic grill. You'd wonder, where did this come from? After all, in the vacuum of space, the molecules that carry smells can't travel like they do here on Earth. Yet the astronauts' suits, after being exposed to the cosmic environment and then warmed up in the controlled atmosphere of the station, release chemical compounds that create this unusual odor. What makes this mystery even more fascinating is that no one on Earth will ever experience this smell. It's a unique sensation, a secret of space, reserved only for those who venture beyond our atmosphere. Want to find out what makes space smell this way? Then let's dive into this enigma together. There's no smell in empty space. If someone asks, what does space smell like? The simplest answer is nothing. Space is a completely empty place, devoid of the air we have on Earth. On our planet, smells reach our noses because molecules travel through the air and enter our nostrils. But in space, there's no air to carry those molecules. It's a vast vacuum where there's no wind, breeze, or anything to bring a scent to you. That means if you were floating in space without a helmet, which of course wouldn't be possible, you wouldn't smell anything at all. On Earth, aromas come from things like food, plants, or even the scent of rain. In space, with no air molecules to carry those smells, there's no odor whatsoever. It's total silence for your nose. So even though some people talk about the smell of space, they're actually referring to something else, like what astronauts notice when they return from a spacewalk. But empty space itself, it's completely odorless. The smell astronauts sense. Astronauts who spend time outside the International Space Station often report something curious when they come back inside. An unusual smell on their clothes and equipment. It's a strong odor, which many describe as metallic, smoky, or even like grilled steak. What's interesting is that this smell doesn't come from space itself, since the vacuum out there has no scent. Instead, it seems to emerge from something that happens to the suits and surfaces exposed to the space environment. After a spacewalk, astronauts enter the decompression chamber to remove their suits. It's at that moment, when the suit comes into contact with the station's pressurized air, that the smell becomes noticeable. It's not present while they're outside because there's no air to transmit it. But once they're back in an oxygen-rich environment, the scent emerges. This experience of encountering something so out of the ordinary is exclusive to those who've been in space and adds an intriguing layer to the stories they share when they return to Earth. Molecules on the spacesuit. Even though space is a vacuum, when astronauts' suits are outside the station, particles from the space environment accumulate on their surfaces. These particles can include highly energized atoms and chemical compounds created during interactions with solar radiation and other cosmic factors. When the astronauts return inside and the suits warm up or come into contact with air, these particles release certain compounds that produce the odors described. Think of spacesuits as a kind of sponge that doesn't absorb smells, but rather invisible materials from space. When they return to the station's atmosphere, these materials can react or detach, producing the metallic, smoky smell astronauts mention. It's not a scent that was in the empty space. It's something that results from the interaction between the suit and the environment. So, while space itself remains odorless, the suits become carriers of these molecules, revealing something about the extraterrestrial environment in a way that's unique to those who've been out there. Similar to a cooking reaction, the smell astronauts report, sometimes likened to grilled steak or something smoky, can be explained by a chemical reaction that occurs under very different conditions from what we know on Earth. In space, there are high-energy particles, like atomic oxygen or other charged elements, that can interact with the metallic surfaces of suits and equipment. These interactions, called high-energy oxidation, can create volatile compounds with a strong odor. It's like when you cook something on a hot grill. The heat and chemical reaction between the food and the grill produce a distinct aroma. In space, there's no heat from a flame or meat being cooked, but there are rapid, intense reactions. When the suits return to the station and warm up, these compounds become noticeable in the pressurized air. That's what generates the unique smell astronauts perceive. It's not food or charcoal, it's the result of extreme chemical processes that only happen in the unique conditions of outer space. It's not exactly meat. Although it's common to hear astronauts compare the smell to grilled steak, that doesn't mean there's meat or food involved. This description is just an attempt to explain the strong, unusual aroma that emerges. In reality, the smell is more metallic, smoky, and chemical, so why the steak comparison? Well, because the volatile compounds released from the suits have an odor that reminds people of the bold scent of something grilled over an open flame. Think of it as trying to describe a new smell that no one else on Earth has experienced. It's easier to use something familiar, like grilled steak or gunpowder, than to invent a completely new term. This comparison helps people understand that the smell is striking, different, and sticks in the astronauts' memories even after they return to Earth. But at its core, it has nothing to do with food. It's simply a way to translate a unique experience from a completely alien environment. Science is still studying it. Researchers don't yet have a complete answer for what exactly causes this specific smell. However, there are some well-grounded theories. One is that the odor comes from highly energized particles in space, like atomic oxygen or micrometeorites, interacting with the metallic surfaces of suits and equipment. When astronauts return to the space station and their suits come into contact with pressurized air, these particles may release volatile compounds that produce the strong aroma. Additionally, the intense solar radiation in space can trigger rapid chemical reactions, creating new compounds that humans don't encounter on Earth. The combination of these particles with the unique space environment results in what astronauts describe as a smoky, metallic, or even grilled steak-like smell. Science is working to better understand these processes, but what we know so far is that these odors don't come from something burning or cooking. Instead, they're the result of chemical reactions in an extreme environment where molecules and atoms behave in ways entirely different from Earth. A unique experience for astronauts. This smell is something only those who've been to space can experience. It's a sensory memory that astronauts bring back to Earth, illustrating just how different the extraterrestrial environment truly is. For them, the odor is like a calling card from space. When the suit is removed after a spacewalk, the smell quickly fills the pressurized environment of the spacecraft, acting as a kind of signature of what happened out there. It's fascinating because this smell becomes part of the space experience, not just the stunning view of Earth from orbit or the absolute silence of the vacuum, but also this unexpected scent that people on Earth can only imagine. It also makes astronauts reflect on the extreme conditions they're in, where even the tiniest detail, like atomic oxygen particles, creates something so unique. Thus, the smell of space isn't just a curiosity. It represents the direct interaction between the extraterrestrial environment and the humans who venture beyond our planet. The smell as a connection to space. As odd as it may seem, the odor astronauts sense has become something iconic. It not only draws attention for its uniqueness, but also symbolizes a rare point of contact between the harsh environment of space and human senses. Every time astronauts return from a spacewalk and mention this metallic or smoky smell, It's as if they're bringing a tiny piece of the unknown back into the spacecraft. While we can't recreate this smell on Earth, knowing it exists gives us a sense of closeness to the cosmos. It reminds us that even in a place with no air, space still finds a way to reveal itself in an unexpected and striking manner.